Hey everybody, Mr. Regan here, and today we're going to be reviewing our active reading and annotation guidelines that we've looked at in previous lessons, but also are important to go back to when we encounter a new article that's going to help us, obviously in this case, with our space pod and our ground team. So if you remember from previous lessons, we talked about how we have these different active reading and annotating guidelines, things to help us dive deeper into our reading and what we're understanding, to help us make connections, and to obviously help us have a deeper understanding of what this information can do for us and our phenomenon. So if you remember, we talked about how active reading is where we have to think carefully about what we understand. And we've already read the article once, so we should have a foundation as to what the article is about. And we've already previewed and examined the different pictures and diagrams as well. As we dive into our reading annotations, we're hopefully going to identify things that either we have questions on or things that we would like to discuss, so that can help us have a deeper understanding as well. So at this point, we're going to be looking at how we're going to be reading and annotating the article that we read, again, to dive deeper. Now, with our article today, we have this focus question. How does the relationship between mass, force, and velocity affect how scientists develop new technology? We might be able to answer that question right now. We might not. Either way, this is a really big question about how mass, force, and velocity affect one another, and how that relationship they have determines how scientists develop new technology, or in this case, different wheelchairs. So what we're going to have you guys do is we're going to have you dive back into the reading here, and you're going to go through and create annotations. You're going to note important ideas and information as you read that are going to help you to either answer this question or to better answer this question, okay? So things that you're going to annotate. You're going to highlight challenging words, okay? If we can identify those words that maybe we don't know or need more information on, it'll help us better answer this question. We're going to make notes of actual questions we have, things that we want to know more about, things that we want to dive deeper with, things we want to make connections with. And then we're going to also note those connections between our personal lives, our experiences, maybe the space pod, maybe things that we have encountered in our life that deal with wheelchairs, whatever it may be. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this might be like. So I'm going to dive into my reading, and as I'm diving into my reading, I'm really going to focus on this big question here. How does the relationship between force, mass, and velocity affect and how scientists develop new technology? So I'm actually going to take that focus question here. I'm going to drag across, and I'm going to create a note here, and I'm going to put that focus question right at the top. So I remember this is what I'm focusing on. Then I'm going to dive into the next part of our reading. So people who use wheelchairs come in all different sizes and shapes, or shapes and sizes. Children and adults, tall and short, big and small, and so do the wheelchairs they use. So this is a very interesting sentence. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, how is this so? Okay. How is this so? Now, many of you might be thinking to yourself, well, Mr. Regan, that's not a very good question, or not a very deep question. You're right. It doesn't explain kind of the bigger picture. It doesn't really connect to this big focus question we have. And though this is a good question, overall, it's, well, in need of a little help. So when we look at the question, we can dive a little deeper and say, how are the differences in designs helpful for all these different kinds of people? So notice that my note here just got erased, but how are the differences in these designs helpful for different people? Boom. And save. I've now taken my question and I went a little deeper with it. Now I might look at my focus question and say, okay, how does this relate to this one? How does the relationship between mass, force, and velocity affect how scientists develop new technology? Okay, well, how are these differences in these designs helpful for different people? I'm looking at this idea of how they're developing this new technology. so that I can have a better and deeper understanding. I'm highlighting the section with my question, and now I've done my annotating, at least one part of my annotating. I'm going to continue on. Remember, there is no number of annotations you should have. There is no set amount of questions you should ask. It simply is you going through and beginning to understand a deeper set of knowledge related to our focus question. So that's how we should be annotating. If you have questions, reach out to me. Otherwise,